Okay, we're here at NeurIPS. We're recording a special lane space coverage of the folks at NeurIPS, and we're here with Ashvin from Cursor. Welcome.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
So I guess Ashvin from Cursor is like a new identity. I didn't even know if I should say that because you only joined Cursor for 3 months. Before that, you're OpenAI working at 0103. Before that, Berkeley, PhD in RL, but focus on robotics.
Robotics, yeah.
Is it weird switching from robotics to language models?
Okay, this is kind of interesting because a lot of people have been kind of doing this.
I mean, OpenAI.
Yeah, exactly.
robotics.
So actually, I actually was at OpenAI in 2017 also working on robotics. Yeah, I was interning like right before my PhD where I worked on robotics there.
2017, is that like Japan and that's Japan over there? He was famously OpenAI's first intern.
Oh, really? Okay, then he might have been before. But yeah, there was like 15 interns. It was a very different company. It was just like robotics, Dota, and like 15 interns that summer, all having like pretty exciting individual projects. Like, yeah, that set of interns, if you look at where they are now, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyone from that class that like you would shout out?
There's just like a lot of cool papers that came out, like Laro Pinto now is at NYU. The person who leads reasoning at XAI, I forgot his name.
Eric. Well, he left.
Not Eric, but yeah, I forgot his name. But he worked on like KFAC and stuff. I think.
Yeah, the Asian dude, Greg.
Not Greg, but yeah. But yeah, it was like an exciting time to be there. But yeah, I think robotics is a pretty good fit for LLMs because like the switch ends up being pretty like you kind of do similar things. Like you want to look at a lot of data. It's like kind of hard to get stuff working in robotics world. I think it kind of builds like very gritty people who like look at data a lot, that kind of thing. So yeah, for whatever reason, I think like that transfers it's happening a lot, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
One of my NeurIPS highlights so far, I had dinner with it's like a small group dinner with Lex Friedman yesterday, and Lex used to be in robotics, and he was like, my assessment of robotics people are the best to talk to at a NeurIPS because they're most grounded. He says. Because they don't have a choice. They work with the real world. So they look at data. And then like the most unhinged, the most detached from reality are like the simulation people.
I see. Yeah. I think I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And I actually did a little bit of both during my PhD. Like I work in kind of like, like prototype ideas in sim and then get them working on real world robotics. And yeah, I mean, probably like robotics is where you kind of feel AGI the least, right? Because it's just so far away from working. Now I think like, I think over the last year, maybe there's been demos that have been super interesting from like physical intelligence and like Sunday and stuff that I'm starting to be like, okay, like this kind of
Have you seen Sunday robots themselves?
I haven't seen them. No.
Apparently they've been doing demos, and I'm pretty keen to seeing them.
Yeah, I've seen the physical intelligence ones live, and yeah, it's pretty impressive. Like just on like in like someone's living room, folding laundry and stuff. Like you can just like toss it in there.
Everybody must be materialized.
Yeah.
Okay, and last thing on robotics, and we can kind of pivot to 0103. Just OpenAI is restarting a robotics team. Is that serious? Is that?
I actually know very little about it because I was in like a pretty different part of the org. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's serious. I think there's a ton of excitement around robotics right now. I'm actually kind of curious what drives it because I don't think I fully understand. Like there's been like crazy raises and stuff recently, right? For robotics companies. I guess my own view on it, and so when I left robotics in 2022, I thought I would actually come back to robotics. But I think my view on it now is that it feels like LLM agents are going to be like $1 trillion market before robotics is maybe even like a $10 billion market. And this is just because, so I mean, LLM agents already create value out in the world.
Yeah.
Robotics, it's like kind of hard to make the case that like kind of AI robotics like does anything that useful yet. And then once it does something useful, then you have to make the unit economics work out. And I think that's also quite hard. Like reliability, I mean, these robots have to be like fixed and this kind of thing. So I think it's kind of hard.
I would say the market is kind of efficient in that the software LLM companies are raising tens of billions.
Yeah.
And then the robotics companies are raising hundreds of millions. So
I think this very recently it's been like single-digit billions.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's like the maybe surprising thing to me is that like it feels like
it's ahead of where it's actually at.
Yeah, like I would say that robotics is in kind of like the GPT-1 to GPT-2 era right now.
Okay.
And I haven't worked on robotics closely.
What
but
task would qualify as like, oh, that's the inflection?
it's a little bit like, when you see it. I thought the like Sunday demos were kind of cool. Like maybe it's like starting to get there where, and the details matter a lot, where it's kind of like, it can't be, it has to be in like a new scenario, like in one that you haven't seen before, and maybe on like objects you haven't seen before. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was kind of what GPT-2 was too, right? Is kind of like you start to see hints of like cool generalization, but like, and I think that's fine. Like, it doesn't have to like work out of the box, but yeah, I think at this point, especially, it still feels like in robotics, you're not exactly investing in a technology. Probably you're just investing in a team. Yeah, I'm not in the space whatsoever, but like that's kind of my impression of it.
It's actually nice when you're not in there because you're like you know as much as like most basically everyone else. Yeah. So we just kind of speculate.
Exactly.
Remind people there's a robotics team at OpenAI.
Yeah.
So coming back to language models, did you join 401 or were you like?
So I joined right before ChatGPT in like I think September of 22.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, I was like pretty burnt out from my PhD, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to this like chill research lab, and then like like ChatGPT happens, and like everything kind of blew up, and like a lot of stuff got kind of like refocused.
But so OpenAI, obviously ChatGPT surprised OpenAI. What did they tell you they were looking for you to do? And then obviously it changed, but
yeah, I mean, so I joined on the code gen team.
The Codex.
Yeah, like
Codex.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like the team that shipped Codex, but by the time we were working on like by the time I joined, we were kind of more so working on the model, doing tool use and these kind of things.
Yeah.
And so like very related to the ChatGPT, like we're kind of like a sister team to the team that made like shipped ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so we were just kind of working on making the models like smarter, like kind of programming competitions, like how to do like SAT for that kind of stuff.
Would an IOI Gold have felt reachable in that time?
Oh yeah, no, like crazy. Like I think, and this is something I've like repeat to people again and again. And these days, like if you told me that we could have gotten IOI Gold then, I would have just assumed that we could all just go on vacation. Like it's all over. Like AI is solved. Like no point in working anymore.
We got it.
Yeah,
it feels like nothing
that much has changed, right? Like life is still the same.
Yeah.
So I think that's like super interesting. Yeah, I don't have a great way to explain it, but I think that's actually like what I spend a lot of time thinking about is like why is that the case?
Yeah.
Because I mean you kind of see this again and again in AI, right? With like solving chess and then like it doesn't really matter, and solving Go, and so you keep seeing it, but I think it like surprises you every single time.
Yeah, I think one is we keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah,
we're very good at that. And then two is I think actually our definitions of what constitutes AGI is bad, and we don't actually mean what we say when we say, oh, when we have achieved this, then we have AGI.
Yeah.
So like clearly, when we have achieved IOI Gold with a language model, we have AGI. It's wrong.
Yeah, and I think shifting the goalpost to some extent is correct. Like we keep good-hearting whatever goalpost we have.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of hard to like
to be good-hearted is like too negative. It's like I will cheat to do what you asked me to do, but I don't think it was cheating. It's just scaling test time compute.
At a meta level, I think the community not cheating, but like makes a lot of like implicit decisions to go after the evals and benchmarks that matter the most. And so
Sube is verified for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, IOI Gold, hopefully not that good-hearted.
Well, but like it kind of clearly is to some extent, right? Because like most programmers in the world cannot do IOI at any decent level, but like we're still struggling to like automate most programming jobs, or like there's a lot left to do.
So it's like we're like language models are here, like junior, senior dev, and then suddenly for IOI you're like expecting
exactly, and like there's something suspicious about that.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of saw this at a meta level also with RL research. So yeah, I did my PhD with Sergey Levin at Berkeley from like 2017 to 22. And that era of RL research was like super interesting because RL was like super hyped, right? Like starting from about DQN in like 2015. And a lot of the methods that people were really excited about is like, off-policy learning, like value functions, like these kind of things. And somehow that stuff hasn't really panned out, I would say. And it's not exactly clear why, but in the academic literature, we thought we were making a ton of progress. And I think in retrospect, I had to say that we probably kind of overfit to the benchmarks pretty heavily. And, how I see this in retrospect is that we gave ourselves a lot of like new knobs to tune, and then implicitly kind of tuned those to fit the benchmarks. Everyone knew that we were doing that at some level, but I think it's hard to appreciate like that it's not just happening for a single paper at kind of like a meta level for the whole community that's happening too.
Yeah.
And I think the result is that like, I don't know, like a lot of the RL research that came out of that era, I don't think is like that used, you know? And I think it's kind of for a similar reason that basically we're kind of like benchmark maxing.
I will full out say there was RL winter, right? Like entire startups that were founded based on premise at the time basically gave up. Some of them died, some of them pivoted, whatever.
Yeah. I think because I was like in academia, there's still quite a lot of excitement over it. But yeah, it still felt quite academic. And yeah, I in that era was a little bit frustrated because I felt like, you know, one of the pitfalls of academia is that it doesn't really reward like simple ideas that work, and instead kind of tends to reward like kind of math theory ideas. Those math theory ideas also give you these like kind of implicit knobs to tune that allow you to like overfit. While you know the things that actually work tend to be kind of simple ones that have less knobs and just generalize to like many things without.
There's just like less secret sauce to it.
Exactly.
Apart from just throw a lot of compute in.
Exactly. But like, those are the things that tend to like.
It's like not intellectually interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, from an academic point of view, it's like, oh, like why am I sitting in school? Like yeah, I think for a lot of people who do PhDs, they're kind of wired in a way they want to like think about interesting new stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you know, the scaling era kind of like, you know, probably stuck to that.
Scaling era. Is scaling era over since we're brought it up?
I think I've just been like paged into that from Saskiba's interview. I don't think it's over, but there's definitely something interesting happening. Right? Like the thing I was saying about like IOI and IMO. I think we'll still continue more or less on the same track. Like clearly, you know, like these labs are like releasing their new pre-trained models, and they're like still doing like much better than before. So I think scaling is still happening, but I think it's happening in a different way. Or you know, it's like worth like seriously interrogating why is it that we're not just like automating all jobs right now. I think my view it is something like RL, the way it's applied to LLMs right now, is kind of a weird, funny tool where it doesn't really generalize beyond the training distribution that much. It generalizes to some extent, and it generalizes in interesting ways, but it's like very peaky, right? Like it can kill the training distribution completely. It can be like best in the world at it with like not that much effort really, but yeah, it doesn't really generalize. So I think what we had to do is bring the world of economically useful tasks in distribution for RL. If we commit to using RL as a tool. And you know, it might be the case that maybe there's some like cool continual learning thing or something that like shifts the paradigm next year or something like that. But it really feels like if RL is a tool, then yeah, a big thing that needs to happen is like it doesn't feel like intelligence of the models is the bottleneck. It's more like you need to have products that bring the entire context of what someone wants to do into the product so that the LLM can like see it. And then you use RL on top of that.
Yeah. Have you seen GDP val?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Is that basically what you're envisioning?
Yeah, I haven't looked at GDP val closely. Actually, haven't seen exactly like so roughly. Yeah.
And recap. Yeah, it's 128 tasks across like any white collar job that takes like more than 5% of GDP, right? And they basically created all the context, the eval on it, and evaluated every model. Like, famously, OpenAI's evals to you. Whoever runs that one always finds the anthropics are the best one.
Yeah. It's props to them for
you publish it.
doing that. Yeah,
it's actual science.
I think it's good.
But like I think like in a sense of like generalizing beyond coding competitions to economically useful tasks.
Yeah.
That is it.
I think that is
what is more important for GPT-6.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is kind of like I just haven't read the like GDP eval traces closely. It's not clear to me that, you know, like what does the job of an accountant entail, and like what kind of context needs to be in the product such that you can actually do it.
PDFs.
I see.
Like so they try to go as close to source documents as possible.
I see. Yeah. So yeah, I think like roughly operating in this kind of thing is what I envision.
Yeah, but because it can't be like an artificial like, oh, let me clean up this data for you to make it easy for the LLM to process. No.
Yeah.
PDF in an agent, go.
Yeah, I think that's like roughly the right shape of the thing. And I guess how I imagine this being operationalize is that you'd want to like co-design the product and the model so that like the product for whatever it is, like, I mean, coding is kind of maybe the easiest first step because most of the context that you care about is just your code base and like being able to run stuff in the terminal and that kind of stuff. And still like we're not that close really to automating it necessarily. But for like all the other jobs, the context is like insane, right? It's like all the conversations you've had with your coworkers, like your Slack messages, like for my, so at OpenAI, I was working on kind of like hyperparameter scaling research. And I actually wrote not that much code.
Grid search or neural architecture search?
No, more like understanding how different, like science of deep learning in like 2020, where it's like, oh, you have to like initialize the layers in a particular way to get good scaling laws. Kind of the analog for that for RL.
Okay.
The thing is, like, I didn't write a ton of code, so the LM, like writing code is not the bottleneck, but it's more like, over the course of a year, I like run sweeps, look at like the interaction between different hyperparameters, and kind of build up that knowledge for like a year of like just different graphs. And to do my job, the model would also need all those things in context, to like successfully like, kind of automate my job. And you'd kind of want a product that allows you to like bring all that context in.
Did you have to build it for yourself or is there an existing one?
Oh no, I mean like no, I mean I those graphs were just sitting in my head.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it would be pretty hard to like go automate that job. But I think what you need to do is build a product that kind of brings that context in, and then you want to RL on top of that to understand, like to teach the models to like use that that context.
Yeah. Another conversation that I think has really come to a phase this year is kind of the death of one model fits all. I feel like the point of the G in the AGI is like one model fits all. I think OpenAI has like clearly abandoned that this year.
Oh, what do you say that?
Fujisimo writing a blog post with the title that we are no longer doing one model fits all.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
And I think Mark Chen or one of the other senior people that are not Sam also saying this in a podcast. And so basically like the idea was you started with Codex, someone else was doing Instruct GPT, then we launched GPT-4, 4.0, I guess 0.1. And 0.1 was kind of supposed to be like a reasoning one model fits all. And then we merged the 4.0 and 0.103 line into 5. And now we're splitting it out into 5 and 5 Codex again. It's like it's just a weird.
Well, OpenAI is very guilty. I mean, I don't think you should interpret those as like scientific facts about the universe. It's just more like OpenAI has a tendency to ship the org chart, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
The world has the tendency.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of it's related to that. But yeah, I see what you mean by like, actually, I do wonder if, like the current reasoning paradigm is just kind of fitting itself to this kind of peaky in certain areas thing, right? I don't think it's so much a matter of like model capacity though. It's just more of another kind of organizational thing that like, if you care really like a lot about coding, you probably don't have the data to do all the other stuff. I don't think it's so much a matter of like, if you had all the data, probably you would benefit from just like training on all of it and you'll get some generalization between these. But it's hard to find like one organization that cares about all these at once.
Yeah. So before I double click on just like the O series in OpenAI, I do like to ask OpenAI people who are there, do you have a favorite blip story?
Yeah, the blip was crazy for me. Like, I was, it was like Thanksgiving.
Like everyone remembers where they were, what they were wearing.
Yeah, exactly. I was at Thanksgiving with 2 OpenAI friends actually. And then one of them on like Friday afternoon is like, oh, like Sam Altman just got fired. we were just like co-working together.
It's like,
I'm like, what? Oh, haha, like, good joke. And then, it was crazy. And then, it was just like a crazy weekend of just like ups and downs. Like, we thought,
you signed a letter.
I did.
It's like 95% of people signed.
Yeah, I thought, like,
Are you bound to Microsoft or?
Well, I think maybe I had a slightly more complex. Like, I actually do think that governance feels really important to me.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like no matter if we hit AGI in like 2 years or 10 or whatever, it's not clear that we have a good structure for the governance of it.
Okay.
And so it is a question that I think we like probably should spend more time on. And I was like during that period just pretty willing to be like, you know what, like let's forget about the like equity and stuff. Like I think it's like good and healthy to have a conversation about like how exactly the government should work.
Okay, you care about this, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Right? So now the OpenAI nonprofit has this like secret shadow board of members that determine when we've reached AGI.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, I don't have a like maybe I would say I don't have an answer. Like,
Yeah.
like it's not
It's
big.
above my pay grade, but like
Yeah, and even back then I was kind of like, well,
I don't care.
I do care quite a lot. When the blip happened, one of my reactions was like, well, this nonprofit board stuff, like, actually, if it takes such somewhat like surprising, maybe erratic actions, like maybe you'd rather just have like, a thing like the Microsoft board, which is kind of like, like probably like all the pensions of the world.
People,
But like it's true, like serious people, but also like, the stakeholders are kind of like the whole world because everyone's kind of, through their pensions or something invested in it. Like maybe that is a bit more of a democratic way to run things and having like 7 people run it. But yeah, I don't really know. It feels like we haven't solved governance like at all though, right? Like if forget AI, even stuff like unhealthy food or like social media, it kind of feels like whatever the kind of like capitalistic incentive is, like doesn't actually like capture kind of good outcomes for society maybe.
yeah. So about like the transition into reasoning, right? You shocked me by mentioning that the reasoning team is 300 people.
It's
If it were your
it's kind of like now that like when O3 was like kind of shipped as a product, like I think it just like kind of gets like larger and larger how many people worked on it. So
Yeah.
I think I've like lost track of the numbers, but yeah, like a lot of people contribute to the different aspects of like safety and whatever eval.
Yeah, so like original O1, like I saw the video, it's like a dozen people. Like
yeah, well, even then, like if you look at all the contributors, it was probably more like 50 to 100 people.
okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, like let's tell that story from your point of view. Figuring out what does RL mean there, and I guess was this a branch of any other prior work that you want to credit?
Yeah. So I think yeah, like setting the scene. I guess in like 2023, people are kind of talking about like is scaling laws dead? This kind of stuff.
Every year, every NeurIPS.
Yeah. But I think especially that year, it felt pretty like serious. Yeah, I think in general, OpenAI is really good about like having conviction in something and just like really like from first principles, like going after it. And I think like the people who are kind of most responsible for that is probably like Ilya Sutskever and Jakub Pachaki. I think even like Dota was kind of more or less the same template in some ways, right? And that was 2017. And so a lot of the people there have kind of this like AGI in their bones kind of point of view. And they've basically been convinced that like RL would be the way to get there. So I think for a long time, people have been convinced that something like that should work. And it's just that it started to work once the like kind of pre-training got good enough.
Okay.
Yeah. I think human feedback is kind of like a bit of like a side branch because you can't really pour that much compute into it, right? It's like you take the model and you like elicit it to be a little bit better in terms of personality. But like the people that were really convinced that like at some point, it's not about copying the internet. Like you can go, do RL and you like that's like the path to like getting much better intelligence. So I think it there was kind of like a long line of kind of like returning to RL in like different ways. And then it's just that around like 2023 is when it started like really clicking. And it was kind of interesting because even it's not like those initial models performed like way better than the existing models because they're like smaller scale, but people were very good at being like, oh, like this is kind of interesting. Like, the reasoning trace that you see here is kind of not something that you've really seen be so accurate in other models like this one. Kind of similar to how I think a lot of people didn't really think of GPT or GPT-2 as something that was like super compelling. Probably, I know that I personally didn't like GPT-2 that much of GPT-2. I was like, okay, whatever. And then GPT-3 happened. And I'm like, oh, well, like I feel a lot of FOMO sitting in my PhD. It's kind of that where I think it takes a bit of like first principles conviction to like, decide that like, oh, this thing, like there's something here and we should really go scale it up. And OpenAI is really good about once you decide that something is good, then you just like scale it up all the way.
Yeah. Was there an internal prototype pre-O1 that was like, okay, this is the thing, we'll fund it to scale it up, right? Like there usually is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like,
What was the thing? What was the demo that like really sort of sold it?
just this, like, like running RL on even like a pretty small model, producing like very interesting reasoning traces and like getting like surprisingly good scores on math.
Yeah.
In a way that we couldn't have done without like a bunch more pre-training. And then, once that looked good, then, more and more resources went to just like scaling up that new like law.
Yeah.
And, things like adding tool use and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people make a lot of headlines on the large models, but I think it's very underappreciated, the minis. How well this solution works. Any comments on just like discoveries on?
Yeah, nothing much to say there. I was also like not super involved in the mini stuff. I think maybe one thing, not exactly related to that, but like it seems like externally people are kind of very like, like research seems to come in these like big leaps.
Okay.
But I think internally at OpenAI it feels very smooth.
Like you have a bunch of experiments.
Yeah.
Some of them have inconclusive results, but maybe you stack them.
Yeah, exactly. You stack them and just like you keep scaling, you keep like having like different runs that, get a little better each time.
Okay.
So I think that's maybe one other aspect that's like a little underappreciated is that like, I don't know, like in the media, there's just these wild swings between like, oh,
it's so
like Googlers were in it. Yeah, exactly. And I think like internally at Big Labs, it's just kind of like, oh, we're just like chugging along. Like maybe this month is a little better than last month or something, but it's like not as crazy up and down.
I think the question is, there used to be more of this, and now I know there's less, which is, well, the stuff we've released, we're like, internally we're like 6 months ahead. Like it's like part of the reason why people, OpenAI wasn't that excited about ChatGPT's launch was because they already had GPT-4. They're like, oh, we'll just like put this out. Like we're already way ahead. I think now people are just releasing things as they have them. Like,
I think, especially because there's some like competitive pressure, right?
Yeah.
I think people are probably pretty worried that like if you let a lead linger for too long, that'll like grab a lot of market share. Like I don't know, like Nano Banana Pro right now is probably like it's like it's pretty good.
A month.
Yeah.
So I would say like now the lead internal to external lead time is about 1 to 2 months.
Yeah.
Which is
exactly
tiny.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Anything else on reasoning side? I guess you can talk about on so say the work on coding. Anything surprised you or like is an external misconception on 0103 side before we go to Cursor?
Well, not really. Like, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, I think it felt already by like maybe early 2024. Like, oh wow, like this recipe like really works, and we can see how far we take it. And so I think, it was like very steady progress. And by that point, it was probably pretty predictable that we could like, really like smash like things like IMO or IOI. Yeah, one funny thing that kind of happened is while this was happening, I went to this conference called The Curve.
Yeah.
Which is about like kind of AI progress.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like
yes, I went last year. This was before the Owen stuff was released.
Yeah.
And I like went to this thing where people were kind of making bets on where we would be on Epoch AI's like the Epoch AI math exam and like humanities last exam and stuff like that. And their estimates were like, oh, we'll be at like 10-20% in like 2027. And I think at the time there was like, models internally that were like already better than their estimates. So they're like, it's like off by like, 2 years or something. And the interesting thing is like, those are also people who are kind of like, predicting that there'd be like Dyson spheres by like 2035 or something.
Okay.
So like the current estimate is way under.
Yeah, they're too pessimistic in the short term, too optimistic in the long term.
Well, I don't know if I didn't. There might be Dyson spheres by 2035. Like I don't really know. But I think that is like one interesting aspect. Is that I think people still seem pretty miscalibrated in different ways. I do really appreciate how that community makes predictions though. Like because I think most of the rest of the world just kind of like cynically says like, oh, I saw this the whole time. Like, so I do appreciate that.
Is this EA adjacent?
I think it's exactly. It's like that group. Yeah.
I like that they like to sort of register their opinions ahead of time.
And I think like broadly, the people who've been the capabilities predictions in that group have been broadly correct if you look from like 2015 to 2020 or something, like where think a lot of people kind of thought that AI was like a sham or like, not really going to be that useful for a long time. And actually, it's somewhere in the like 2030-ish thing that like it will probably reach like human level intelligence.
Yeah. It's weird. So like I feel like a skeptic when I keep saying like everyone always predicts that AGI happens in their lifetime. That's very convenient for whoever. And like we have a consistent view of history where you see like people in the 1800s and 1900s making predictions. It somehow always lands in their lifetime, whatever the thing is. Yeah. But like this time it might happen. Almost surely, right? Like, but no,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So it's an interesting observation. Like, how different are we from our predecessors in terms of developing our technology?
Yeah.
Did the DeepSeek moment this year, crazy, change anything internally?
Not really. Yeah, I think that was. I think more so just like surprised that it created such a moment. Like it was kind of confusing, right? It was like DeepSeek shows that NVIDIA chips are actually more useful than previously thought, and like NVIDIA's stock like goes down a bunch. Like it was kind of like.
I think it's more like, okay, well, I'll do the steelman.
Yeah.
That side, which is, well, you don't need the top of the line NVIDIAs. You can just use the sort of previous generation or the shackled ones they sell to China to do an equivalent amount of work for a reasoning model.
I see. Yeah, but then it was also, I guess the feeling at OpenAI is that like, well, I think we had a better model already at the time, right? So, and it was quite valuable. Like smarter models were clearly quite valuable. So you kind of wanted to be at the frontier.
Okay, so I wasn't quite framing this as like a race dynamics thing between labs. It was just also more like, well, were they right? Were their approaches right? They had R10, which is kind of like a really cool branch. So more like commentary on what we learned about RL this year in 2020.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like basically a lot of the labs have kind of like converged onto some similar-ish way of doing RL, and they're all kind of back at the same level of like frontier again. Like even the Anthropic models, like the Opus 4.5, it has this kind of like, there's this like RKGI2 plot that looks exactly like the OpenAI ones, right? Like, so I think everyone seems to be converging on a pretty similar form of RL. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think people basically figured out in one way or another to like achieve more or less the same thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about the move to Cursor.
Yeah.
Why is Cursor accumulating and drawing so many cool RL people?
Yeah. So I actually kind of like already like talked about this so far, I guess. Like, so yeah, I think from the perspective of Cursor, it's like, nice not to be so like dependent on like external labs for everything. And like, I think there's also like unique opportunities to co-design the product with the model in ways that I think we couldn't do unless we actually, built the model ourselves and like had access to, making it good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like broadly why Cursor's so excited.
Okay, I'll push back a little bit, right? OpenAI has infinity resources, infinity data, has Codex. You could have just stayed.
Yeah. Well, actually, right around when I was leaving is when like I think people started actually like using Codex a lot. So that was kind of like it happened right after I left. So that was kind of funny. Like
so mostly people are using Cursor internally, maybe a bit of Windsurf because it's left over from the previous thing.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. So it wasn't that obvious, but actually I think more to the point, this thing I was saying about like RL is kind of a tool that doesn't really generalize that well. So what you want to do is bring the entire like kind of test distribution inside your training distribution. I saw the opportunity to do that at Cursor kind of like directly. And I think the Cursor folks are also just like really excited about that kind of vision. And it's just like a small place where, like the product people sit like right next to the ML people. And I think there's a lot of potential there. You can kind of see that recently Jacob Jackson had this blog post about like online tab where like, we're doing policy
updates every 2 hours.
Exactly, like a policy update every two hours or something. And I think that's the type of thing that, I think it's like a little hard to do. It's like very hard to imagine that at OpenAI, for example, just because like, the product is this like kind of complicated thing. And also like the product people and RL people are pretty like, on like different sides of the org.
I think if you put your mind to it, you would. It's like, tab is an autocomplete. It's a smaller model. It's, it's not as complex, I guess, as full LLM.
Yeah, but I don't think that's really this like, I think I don't think that's why Cursor was able to do it. It's actually more about like just the org itself being kind of like smaller and a bit more like focused.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, since you're indulging this, I think the question about continual learning, which obviously is a big theme, it's always been a big theme, is bigger this year, is, well, don't you need to curate your data? You can't just like chuck whatever your users are doing in straight in, because that tends to get you towards the middle of the distribution. Actually, you want to spike it.
I guess it depends how you're thinking about continual learning. I mean, I don't know, like humans are quite good about dealing with bad data too, right? Like you can see something, like you can see someone doing something dumb and decide like you're not going to do
Filter it out. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's not even actually filtered out. Like you have, presumably some kind of value function that like says that if you see someone touch a hot stove, like you're not going to go, you don't need to, like it's not just filtering it out, you're actually not going to do it, right?
You could rediscover hot stoves on first place.
Yeah, but like you don't need to. So I think there's something pretty deep there. Yeah, like it seems like we're kind of like a few orders of magnitude of like kind of data efficiency basically away from like that kind of like, you do something once, or like you make a mistake, like you introduce like a bug in your code, you're not going to do it again, but the models will happily just like keep doing it, even within the same context, but definitely of course across contexts.
Yeah.
So I think there's something like interesting and deep there. Is like maybe, I suspect that it will be kind of like paradigm shifting in the next like year or something, but I have no idea like what it might be. Yeah.
So is primarily you worked on Composer, Tab, and maybe Search?
So I've actually just worked on Composer.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the main focus of the company basically, or like the ML group, is shipping a better Composer. Can
you describe, I guess, the impressive, brag a bit about the ML group?
Yeah. I mean, I think the ML group is great. It's like, it's just like 20, 25 people. And, I was like, honestly, like pleasantly, like very, very surprised at like how good Composer is, like given the size of the group. And, it's not like a big research lab yet. And, I think it's like a really good model. You can kind of see that in the reception. And I think it's kind of the start of hints of like code design with the product in some ways. Because I think one of the reasons that people really like it is it's smart enough that you actually want to use it. And it's also fast. So you kind of like stay in the loop with the model while you use it. Because I think all the other smart models have this kind of, they're slow that you want to go kind of context switch away and come back. And that sucks, just as like a programmer, it just sucks to kind of context switch. It kind of like gives you ADHD. Like it's like really terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, it's like one step in the direction of like being able to be more sync. And I think that's, like, basically the whole company is just really, full of people who want to, code, even like the co-founders, like actually the co-founders are often some of the best, like high taste testers, which also kind of gives you a lot of like reassurance that you're going to ship good stuff. So yeah.
Any example test that like maybe Composer doesn't solve yet, but you're really motivated to solve?
Yeah, ironically, I feel like I'm actually like a low taste tester in some ways, because I don't know, like, I just like write like slow like machine learning code and just like think about algorithms and stuff all day.
Yeah.
I think more broadly, I'm super excited about code designing the product so that you can actually, not just, right now we're getting better and better at like answering user prompts. And I think that's why Composer 1 is like quite good. But, what we're really aiming for is like more like, automate software engineering as a process where you like write code, you go look at Datadog, look at what's like happening, then come back and like, maybe have some hypotheses about what's better, like rerun stuff. I think that's the type of thing that we actually want to make the model do. And I do think that Cursor is kind of like uniquely positioned to do that, in the sense of like, if we can kind of, if a lot of what a software engineer does kind of ends up in the product, I think we can use that to like get better and better at, not just writing code, but kind of like the whole job.
Yeah, I think that's very inspiring. Just to double click on just any sort of RL insights, Sasha and Lee have talked a lot about like the internal tooling that you've had for all the like the cluster visualizations. Is that helpful? Is that what every lab has?
Yeah, I think the tooling at Cursor is actually really good. I think because, it's just kind of like people are just down to like vibe code stuff. They like do test their own stuff. Like, so we just have like a lot of good tooling where you can, like have like a SSH session into like our own like user environment or something, and like see if like code runs the way that like users got it to run, like this kind of thing. I think that's actually quite nice. I think basically one of the big lessons in ML in general is that you want to be like really close to your data and understand your data well. And I think Cursor is like kind of again kind of like uniquely positioned to do that well.
Especially because all internal tooling, you're not buying anything.
Yeah, it's just like internal. And part of it is just that we're also working on a product where you can understand it really well because it's a code product. Well, like if I don't know in OpenAI, if I was like to look at like a biology question, I have no idea like what this is about.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I think that's a good overview of everything. I guess other than we covered OpenAI and Cursor, just interesting RL work that other people are doing that you're like still mulling over. It's influential to your thinking. Good papers, anything like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've like kind of gotten the habit, especially at OpenAI, of like not reading that much external work and just like reading people's like Slack posts internally as like the main like way to like like learn new stuff. No super inspiring recent things have popped up to me. I do think that this like kind of vibe of like continual learning, it's like does feel like I think there's something super interesting there, and like it feels like maybe even in academia people could make like a big crack at it.
And continual learning specifically meaning kind of what Tab is doing.
Yeah, maybe what Tab is doing, but also just like kind of like in context learning, but with like infinite memory or something, so that you don't, once you experience something in context, it should just like be in your weights and you shouldn't have to like make that same mistake again, that kind of thing.
Why do you think so it should be in your weights, but there's a finite capacity for the weights to remember things. You will forget things if you do that too much, right?
I mean, you start out by memorizing or like learning from trillions of tokens.
Yeah.
Now you're going to experience like thousands or maybe millions of tokens, and somehow like we can, and the million tokens are kind of,
and you only need one epoch.
Yeah, exactly. So
crazy.
Yeah, so it feels like if you could learn enough about those million tokens that you're actually in deployment on, I don't think you should need, like, I don't think there's a risk of overloading the capacity of your model, right? Because you can train on a trillion tokens and it's like fine.
Right. So there's proportionally it's a drop in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Water bucket.
Yeah.
Unless you run it for years, and at some point it starts.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I find it very curious. I've only had one podcast on information theory of language models. Like, what is the theoretical capacity? How much are we using? And you should probably track that.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Like treat the weights. If you want to store things in weights, okay. Treat it as a hard drive. What's the capacity of the hard drive? How much can be stored in there? We know the capacity. It is the number of bits that this occupied by the language, by the parameters.
Yeah.
Physically cannot store more than that.
Yeah. And it's I've heard that there's this kind of like someone recently at Cursor, Jacob, kind of brought up this view. I don't know if it's like a more public view. It's like there's kind of like a hard drive view of neural networks and kind of like a CPU view of neural networks, where is what's happening in the weights like memorizing stuff, or is it like you're like having some like few circuits that do a lot of work, this kind of thing. And I don't know, I would love to there's like actually so many of these kind of more sciencey questions that I would like love to explore sometime, but then it really kind of conflicts with like empirical stuff, like unfortunately at any given moment in time it doesn't seem like the most fruit for like improving something especially in the short run, but even in the next like couple of years is like understanding some of these questions. I mean, I guess this is technically supposed to be the role of academia, but it's like also hard to explore those ideas there without enough compute. But actually I would love to like go at some point like return to exploring these kind of like fundamental science ideas.
Okay, I'm kind of springing this on you, so you can take some time. What is a good RL interview question that if somebody can answer, they should join Cursor immediately?
Ooh, it's a hard question.
I assume you do interviews.
Yeah. Well, actually, at Cursor we do like work trials, and it's like 2-day work trials that I actually think that's like more representative.
Because you plug in and you see how they behave.
Exactly. So I actually think it's like more valuable. This is honestly less of a thing about how you understand RL and a bit more like were you around in the like 2017 to 22 era. But it's like, why is off policy RL unstable? Is kind of, I think, like a good question to like dive into.
I don't actually know, so I need to dig into it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That was great conversation. Do you have any sort of call to action?
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely hiring at Cursor. So, yeah, if you're interested in working on, especially like kind of data and rewards for code, I think that's like a huge need. Yeah, please like get in touch. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sweet.